Right. I'd like to declare the meeting open and we begin with the code. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the meeting of the Hearings Committee to deliberate on the proposed street tree policy and the proposed. The committee will be making recommendations to the council meeting 24th of June. Please, anyone, let me know if you need to leave the meeting early. And just a reminder that the meeting is being. Next item, I now call on members to declare any conflict. Thank you. Next item is apologies. I'd like to move the motion that the Hearings Committee accepts the apology for non-attendance from area representative Robert Tongarone. Do I have a second? Thank you, Naomi. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Motion carried. Next one is reports for decision on the proposed street tree policy deliberations. I'll hand over the policy advisor. We have spoken in.
I'm sitting in for us today. This report provides a summary of submitted feedback on the proposed street tree policy, as well as staff advice and additional information for deliberations. The proposed policy replaces the existing street tree policy. It sets out the overarching framework of how street trees are planned, managed, and following community engagement, we propose updates to the policy to amend the criteria for street tree removal, include a policy statement around sourcing new trees locally, considering native trees for new trees rather than prioritising them, and emphasising that council is committed to retain healthy and mature trees. Contractors will make decisions on behalf of council on street tree removal and replacement in accordance with this policy, which we have publicly considered. Officers recommend improving communication and community engagement around proposed street tree works. Details of how we will inform the community about street tree removal and replacement will be informed by the procedure with the aim to inform those most affected by the decision. This aligns with our significance of engagement. Subject to your approval, the proposed policy will be considered by council at its meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any questions on the report?
Yeah. I was looking at the article about prioritising versus considering happy with that change. Should we have considered something inside of this policy? Does it do something else around the buying local parts and not just the? So we've got that we want to buy local where we can, but we haven't really. I can't see where we say we don't want to work with local parents to make sure we have stock locally. Now, whether or not that goes here, that goes sure. Because we have lots of nurseries who we could now to provide stock for the future.
So operationally, because we outsource our recruitment to a contractor, we are engaging in sourcing local and wasn't just that trees, but just the wider annual events, everything is sourced locally. Unless there's things that we might need to get a larger species or a species that isn't supplied where we would go out somewhere. But yeah, with North Road,
so that's something
obviously, I think there's something about supporting them. So there are mechanisms to support that.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the report. It's very
Just in regards to not reintroducing standing, can you just outline?
So I guess the former Spectrum Advisory Group was formed in the time where we didn't necessarily have a robust policy like we have developed now. So there was, I guess, some windows of, and I think it was I think at the time where there were gaps within the policy where having some external support, there was stuff around directory networks, and I think the stag served a purpose at that particular time. Some of the decisions the former stag group made have led to, I guess, some operational and some impacts around current management and maintenance of the structure network. Reynolds Street is a classic example of where a decision was made to allow trees to grow along power line sides of the street. If you go down Reynolds Street, you have the side that pollarded and the side that wasn't. And the pavement on the southern side is immaculate, and the pavement on the sort of northern side has had to be replaced 18 years earlier than it was required and scheduled to be done. There were public injuries that were reported from trucks, and obviously the power line interference, root disturbance was quite significant. So we staged bringing that back to pollarded states so that the asphalt work could go ahead to make it safe again for pedestrians, but ensure that we didn't have the during earlier than scheduled. I think another more recent example is the decision in New Street, which was highly popular, to take out established trees, but it was to resolve flooding of properties. And we've gone through the big equal storms, and all of the issues have now been resolved. There were no complaints, no issues of inundation in the private properties as a result of that, and trees have been replaced. I think so. We have evolved, we are maturing in this place, and I believe the Spectrum Advisory Group would bring some unnecessary bureaucracy to the process that we've got. We've got a commercial contract in place with a contractor. They utilise local arborists. They have to, through policy, get local arborist support to do the work. So we're getting local expertise, providing them around decisions on which trees require removal, maintenance, crown lifting, pollarding, and I think having another body how do we manage that commercial responsibility that our parks contractor has when we've got another body coming in, potentially overriding or interfering with the contract? So that's something that potentially would need to be worked through very carefully. Yes. Another thing about the Spectrum Advisory Group is that predominantly our new trees that are coming into the big work are coming from developers. And so the developers are engaging all of our local expertise. Our submitters are heavily involved in development and design of new developments. And so those are being submitted through our planning department. And so Rogan, Scan, and that are all reviewing the design pictures. What we have seen is that there has been obviously a big push to obviously promote sections of the same. So some of the more recent developments have seen a lot of trees being planted for subdivision development, and the long-term impacts for council will be lots of increasing maintenance. Another thing about the Structure Advisory Group obviously is And there'll be some OpEx costs around that, so they'll be entitled to remuneration under our current policy. And yeah, we don't have a process around who it would be. In the past, it's obviously been actually looking this the CDD upgrade has shown that there's no clear vision, or there's lots of different people's views from, and they're all experts in their own rights, but there's still no clear agreement on tree decisions. So I think, yeah,
Yeah, so then in regards to, that's all the comments. And I guess Queen Street is an example of that, maybe the pros of having a road in place at that time. Yeah, just your thoughts.
yeah, I
It
think
would be,
I think Queen Street, because Queen Street was set up to do the dam. That was how the project. And if we had budget to do enhancements, then we wouldn't have had the situation that evolved. So I think it's slightly unfair to use that as an analogy for why the spreadsheet by the group would make a difference, because that's our past contractor, arborist expert, David Green, who is highly qualified in this field, has been sort of the overriding person that's made the decision on the spreadsheet choice. And overall, it has been accepted by the community as a good choice. So I think without grading the scripture advisory program, there are avenues for people to seek feedback through direct engagement when we start to make decisions in certain areas, so that can have a significant impact on the neighbourhood. And so there's the opportunity to engage on a case by case basis and get that feedback in. But to have I think the conflict between trying to manage a scripture advisory group, our commercial obligations to a contractor, and who has the overarching power to say, no, you will not do this, you will do this. It is further fleshing out.
just one more question. Do you? But my thoughts around the naming of this policy are greater than just trees. Would you agree that it's greater than just looking at the street trees or masters or a urban scope?
No, well, we've got precedent plans for spaces which will deal with the reserves series. So I think this is to address how we manage our street tree network. We need clear guidance around the introduction of what species is appropriate, the operational processes that developers need to go through to make sure, like the root boxes, things like that are put in place to ensure the long-term health and yes, the least impact really on the systems. So there's a spreadsheet policy because there is a clear definition between the two. I know that there's a talk of doing an evaluation of a spreadsheet network. I highly recommend that we do follow through with that work so that we get a true understanding of the amount of trees we've got, the condition they're in. It'll give us a lot of information around some carbon sequestration levels, the pollution, the amount of pollution reduction our current network has. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thank you for the report, it's very good, and it addresses a lot of the things that were raised. I have two questions. One is, obviously we need an increased maintenance budget for our trees. So, and I know that's part of the ultimate discussion, but will you come back with a recommendation as well?
So as part of the thing, we'll slowly address bringing us back. Well, ideally, we've got well over 4,000 street trees in the network, and we have a register currently, but it doesn't go into, I guess, the full detailed condition for each particular tree. That work will guide, I guess, the level of maintenance required for us to speak, but realistically, we should be attending to every tree at some stage between 3 to 5 years, every 3 to 5 years. And so we're well.
What would be helpful in the LTP discussions is, here's the Lexus model of the implemented services, what it costs.
Yeah.
But, you know, we need some different options.
Yeah.
Because obviously it sounds to me like we need to stay on.
Yeah.
So that was my first question. The second question is, I totally support doing the work, can be targets, but you know, where we are, because it seems to be different. Depends on where we need to go as well. It's referenced in here, but it's to ensure that that's actioned. Should that actually be part of a separate bullet point to the recommendation? Because I would like to include that as the third bullet point. So maybe, Sophie, if you could think some wording between now and the end of this meeting, because I don't want them to get lost. Those are my two questions.
Can I respond to that? So I think all that goes into Councillor Lennox's question around is what we're looking for something bigger, and I think what we're talking about is perhaps a forest strategy or a similar sort of strategy. And I think in the hearings it's very clear that we're talking about that. That's what the first part would be assessment to see where we currently are and then where to go. And so maybe we could have a recommendation that that officers vote what forest strategy may look like and report that back as part of the LTP.
And sorry, and I do one more question. You mentioned some here about recommended trees and then how that list is still. So my question is, that's vital to things moving forward, because you see with developers, here's looks trees kind of thing. Do you know when that we will be?
The list has grown through this over the last sort of 3 or 4 months from the initial suggestions, and we're continually taking feedback. And through from the as developers, landscape designs come in, and they put forward a tree species that wasn't on the list. We're adding it to make sure, and then so once we, in the next couple of weeks, we'll finalise that list. We'll send that through for arborist review. But just double check that there aren't unintended impacts.
Because my follow-up question there too is there to me is it's list, but it could be a live, you know, we start here.
Yeah.
But it could change in the future.
Yeah. And remove it, we find the species that actually it's not
It's kind of
produced as their environment, then yeah, we could. But we don't
It's the benefit of including it in the procedure, just like the living document, it's how we want to get this thing. Yeah. So as I've said, that's been made public.
because if you got strategy and you've recommended trees list, and you've got an increase in maintenance budget, I mean, you're well on the journey.
Yes.
Okay, that's me.
Yeah, more comments needed. Question on, we comments, one question, I would like to, then there any conversation, the appreciation, and the heavy value of the trees. It's, but I've been fine. The question, that, well, we'll do that later.
My question on that is, if there's no change to accounting values for the street trees, whether or not we do something around aesthetic and amenity purposes, like trees that replace light for light, if possible. It's just, we're still,
Like
we're
I mean, I think we take Church Street, for example. So we've got a street that's got a row of London pine trees that are required to be pollinated back every year. We spend $7,000 a year highlighting trees to protect underground infrastructure, and these are trees that are surrounding rubbish. They're not getting, they're not in the best conducive environment, they're not getting ground over. So make that whole white tree replacement be that if we took out those sort of plain trees, we wouldn't want.
So you think that like for like is covered? Like.
Yes.
It's a question of the street.
I think,
Any street tree must be considered for relocation. Yeah, or hazardous street trees must be planned in accordance with the new street tree.
It comes back to that right tree one place and amenity and any further questions? No further questions?
Well, because this is a broad question. I'm still not comfortable about the non-reception of advisory group signs. So I just want to know if I can. Yeah.
Would be vital, I think.
But I need to understand where I can
And I think you don't actually have the wording of the amendment at the moment, because you don't know exactly what it's range, is that right?
No, I just so we have discussion getting in the room to see if the people around the committee take that. Interested in re-establishing something like that. Yeah, points about to lay out.
So Harry, I think if the opposite recommendation is covered, and then there is a discussion and a bit put to that recommendation.
Not adopting policy is this.
That's right.
Policy.
These amendments, yeah, but we, yeah, and we can talk through what that actual amendment looks like when we put.
Just that one is
So,
actually just because
yeah,
it's here.
that's fine.
Yes.
Future about that.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the recommendations in the report. Recommendations of the report are read these out one by one. That the hearing committee, one, notes the committee has been provided with full set of submissions as part of the hearing report 15th of April 2020. Two, considers the community feedback received and advice from staff. Three, notes minor changes to the proposed street tree policy to amend the criteria for street tree removal, including a policy statement for new trees locally, considering natives for new trees, and emphasise that council is committed to retain healthy and. Four, recommends the council adopt the proposed street tree policy. Attempt one, is that
Right, doing.
and give public notice of the making of the policy.
Just put that.
Five, notes that subject to adoption of the proposed street tree policy. Will come into force on 1st of July 2026. Six, notes that the street tree policy 2010 will be revoked from the time the proposed street tree policy deleting comes into force. After that,
Put one before.
1 to 4. Now I'd like to move
Yeah.
1 to 4. I'll now move the motion. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Those in favour, say aye.
Starting for,
No, those are not right. We're not doing it.
We've got 1 to 3.
so on the only discussion, that's where we made an amendment to 4, on to 4.
Yeah, there's that version actually for you.
We need to, yes, we need to go to discussion.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think it's the only ones.
What do we get?
We can do 1 to 3.
It's easy to do one.
Yeah, do 1 to 3.
1 to 3?
Yeah.
Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Those are carried. Okay, now number 4. Discussion on number 4.
That means I think we need to change it first, just in case we need to come back on. Yeah, let's do those ones. Yeah,
We have discussion on 4.
thank you. Right. One of the strongest, this is in regards to the advice, strongest and consistent themes from our submission is the desire for greater community involvement and independent expertise in decision making, particularly through some form of an advisory group or similar. That message came through really clearly to us all. Many submitters were not asking council to hand over decision making, they were asking for transparency, expertise, and community confidence in how decisions are made. And I kind of feel like it's quite important that we genuinely acknowledge that feedback rather than just dismiss it because it's issues. It wasn't perfect and there were many issues, member balance, character, but none of those issues are but the report states that there is currently no agreeable robust process for the vetting members. To me, that's not a reason not to proceed. It's simply a reason to establish a good advisory group. It's very clear that the public actively, have their opinions and thoughts around the trees around the town, even though Free Street isn't a good example, well, example in regard to that, how much feedback we got. We're often creating terms of reference and covers of that skill-based other advisory groups, hence the disability advisory group that got so we can't place here. Also, council is largely currently relying on operational contracts, technical advice in the area that's against biomethod, agricultural planning, biodiversity, climate against the engineering impacts, the community and meditate, independent oversight and local expertise with strength. It may be not weaken it. A well-structured advisory group could improve public trust, provide specialist knowledge, reduce conflict, and improve transparency, and ultimately support better long-term outcomes for our ratepayers. So therefore, I would be hoping that we would look at agreeing to re-establishment an advisory group of some sort based around this new policy. And I don't know what words I have to come up with for that to implement it, but I really do believe that this policy should reflect our community's wishes. I know there's a lot of operational aspects to it, but I think given what the submissions we've heard and the feedback we've received, we need to discuss and implement the best policy we can moving forward for the future, not just today. And I think we're in a really wonderful position today to make sure that the policy is covers everything of the future. So I don't know what we can do with that, but it's the feedback.
We just followed up on that. I remember years ago, Wigan was the council on the stag. It was really brilliant. She was worked with them really well. And then we had another council along, and that was sort of the start of the downturn, really. But I believe that we do need to. It doesn't need to be a big group. It needs to be people that are professional in their own way, as we did recently, Queen Street, every person had an opinion. But I believe there are a group of people in Marsden that can do the job. And if the right group is selected, they can liaise with the other group as well. And the people, if it's working well, people will be. So I believe the other thing is too that it's very expensive and they call it a tune on price, and unfortunately they I know for a fact without that itself anyway, they charge exceeding prices that is not competitive. So we need to make that competitive. But I believe that we could revert to the staggered route, and I'm happy to second that motion. So what's the other things in place?
Thanks.
So my question would be, would there be a more efficient way of something, some community? These discussions, you know, for instance, we have reached out to people saying, tourism example. Because I don't support establishing the group, but I do support better communication with the community and those people that this is an area of interest and also an area of expertise. So I'd like to get back in offices as to whether there's a way that we could improve our communication in the area without women advisory group. Yes.
We have included that. Stephen's the liaison people directly affected. And overall.
That's one aspect. I guess this comes down to if it's project related or whether it's just day-to-day operation. I'm feeling something.
It shouldn't be, I don't believe it should be day-to-day.
So this comes down to it's project level around a component of the project development scoping work. When officers come to council with a budget for a project, that remember this that there is a cost to what the community expect in regards to wanting 7 metre canopy trees, things like that. So I think there's a place within the project development rather than having a day-to-day spiritual advisory. That's
So further to that then though, if we're looking at, I'd like to move the point that we do scope the forest, development work. To my mind, the development of that work must be say with that kind of interaction would be really helpful because there are people within the market with experience with that.
If we were to develop strategy, that's when that greater community engagement would be engaged with those experts and that would the strategic approach to that. So that's where you get that expertise. So we set the settings across all our river trees through that strategy.
Because I personally don't believe that as a tree advisory group should be involved operationally in the day-to-day decisions. You know, what are we going to improve next week and what are you going to next week? Because if you're going to do something which we talked about that is a targeted operational exercise and deal with a targeted group of people, which might be effective, whatever. But whereas if we're looking at strategy and planning and how the going to look like in the future, or we've got a project opportunity here, these are some community input. I'm all for that in that environment, but not day to day. You know, getting that.
I don't think the street, I don't think the street advisory group it's not around day to day. It's not like, so we're giving, yeah, well, okay, so let's clarify that. It's not day to day operation. It's like exactly the same as the disability advisory groups. They meet and they discuss, you know, and come up with particular outcomes that are going to be effective. But exactly the same. It's not a day to day getting in there and it's a committee group that.
I've got a suggestion then. If I put the point about further scope of the work, which would include community
Establishment of a guide on the road.
yeah. So we've got this problem that's been developed.
It's not the elephant.
Is that something you've seen this problem?
No, it was so evident and clear, Mr. Bidders and other non-submitters, that there was a want from the community to have an advisory group around the urban forestry and whatever we're going to call our policy, but not day-to-day operational stuff, but just that broader overview.
So how do you-
Okay, so what we can do, we can note it, that is important, we can say, spoken with them and forest energy, and when that comes back to us, we say that needs to include a,
So what's the time frame on it?
So can I just be clear? So you want to establish a street tree advisory group,
That's what I'm putting on the table.
but only for non-operational day-to-day matters. So currently, the disability advisory group and other advisory groups don't meet on a regular basis, but as climate advisory group, when we want to have input into particular things, we go out to the advisory group for input. So that would be around the larger projects. That would be certainly when we develop a strategy, if we do so. And so it's around the terms of reference.
Yes. It's and like we do it for the disability.
yeah,
So what we could do then, if that's the proposal, the proposed amendment is that we adopt the street tree policy, but includes a provision for street tree advisory group on urban forestry.
The street tree, the basis down.
Lines. So that was come down to the terms of reference. You know, I wouldn't, yeah, so I think we need to keep it separate, but it would be that type of advisory group where it's project based.
Yeah.
So that would still be, we would call on the advisory group as we need there.
yeah.
And how we assign that group, it would be exactly the same group as created.
Yeah.
Like that.
So we can adopt the proposed street tree policy that includes provision for a street tree advisory group. Terms of reference will come back to the council.
I think that we're just adding in, I don't support that setting up street tree. It's setting up, we've already established a whole bunch for, and we had a big discussion about it on the table, about all of the elements that we have. It's a proposal, so I think there is an opportunity to strengthen some auditor and the procedures and the policies. I think that we need to have a better discussion about the urban.
I think it comes as part of the scope.
Yeah, so I think we've been creative by saying let's have a street tree group, because we already, we want to get the urban one. And we want them to be able to look those sorts of things. I think that a street tree advisory group is too limited in scope. And that's what we can talk about it this way, because that's.
Yeah. I just following from that, what we're saying is, community, we want more community input on our strategy moving forward, right? So I think we're in agreement that we don't want them chatting about what they're doing Monday and Friday. But that, to me, it comes as part of the scope for the development of the urban strategy.
No, the strategy is very much.
But then it falls down from that, and we say, how do we put effect to this? Don't we?
The policy would be the way of giving effect to the strategy. So to develop that, we might need to actually change the policy, but it would be much broader.
But what
So to put the advisory strategy.
But if we have an urban forest strategy, that could result in an urban forest advisory, couldn't it?
It could do.
Yeah.
It could do. We just need to be clear on what is it that we're after.
Or communication with the public on big decisions that involve.
Can you go back to your first? Yeah, can you make that first?
Scope both, scope a strategy and terms of reference for public advisory.
Yeah, can you read that?
So that would be, so we would continue with 4 as it is, and then we would have an additional point, which is scoping a forest strategy.
Yeah.
And scoping an advisory group.
Yeah.
We're an advisory body.
It won't.
Well, we would need to go and look about where that would be, so that's when we come back and say, actually, you know, and I don't think it would be dissimilar to what we what I talked about earlier, that it would be somebody, people that we could call on to provide input into the strategy, into other policy.
We're in the kind of document.
Nowhere now, because if it's, we would need to look at where it probably fits with the strategy or a policy.
Because
Or we could include it as part of the policy.
when we had done thick groups previously, we've agreed that we're going to set up a work advisory group. So previously, next term. Then, terms of reference came back to council, this is how they would be involved, this is priorities, focus, blah, 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 blah. And then as a council, we agreed to terms of reference for the group. So that's the similar process that it's for this.
But it's not, but it doesn't sit in the policy.
No.
Doesn't sit. It's, it doesn't make sense. Right? It needs to sit somewhere. Otherwise, it's yeah.
So it's an action.
So we could include it in the policy, and so we need to amend the provision that says stop the policy, but include the amendment to board advisory group.
Yeah.
And officers go away to scope that looks like. And then that's clearly putting it under policy. Or alternatively, you can just ask us to go away and scope an advisory group and see where that would best fit. We might then need to change the policy, or we might say that actually it's better alongside the strategy or within other climate provisions. So it's just, or in a different place. But it would be a bigger thing. So it wouldn't just be specific to spring trees.
Right advisory working.
So,
So you have to.
and there's a lot of things that we to deliver. One of them could be develop a strategy, and then out of that on the action thing, because we have a kind of advisory group that could all sort of evolve into something, including urban crossing.
I just feel like it's going to get lost and talked about, and then yeah, and I'm sitting here today presenting the people that,
But
it's
the
the
things. Broken, that's. What's the word?
policy carers on supervisor.
Well, if it's actually been recommended and moved, has to get done.
It feels to me, because there is slight disagreement around the table, that if we treat it separately, so we include it in that scope of strategy and scope and advisory. Yeah, that's
So-
that we need representation.
So it's not lost.
No,
It's not there.
so I'd like to move to 7 point.
So do you want to put 4 as it is? And then have 7, which is the policy stage
Even as going to be developed and moving further.
scope, the development of.
Guys, not be developed to development strategy.
How it's got some words.
What have you got?
Yeah, so
The reviews that council undertakes district-wide community assessment and scopes an urban forest strategy.
Include a possible.
No, that's and scope. Yeah, and well,
And
scope and then pre-advisory.
We could say what you want to do.
No, it might not be scope.
Yes, 7 and 8.
Scope. And tree canopy assessment.
Yes, 100%.
So you can have a note.
Key points.
Yeah.
But you could be on it.
So you have a 100%, yeah.
Okay, development, yeah. Doesn't matter about the noting.
I just think we learned a lot with Queen Street. And, I see that sort of situation happening again.
I think we learned a lot from this, situation, actually.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty good questions.
It was very important.
Sometimes it's in the future, yeah. It's how we're going to keep our lives.
So by the way, what would happen if the consultation process for the council made the decision to just do the bare minimum? Because it was a part of, well, it's the timing, but you know, as a human nature is when we're told somebody's going to take stuff away, we're going to engage. But if we say, hey, we want new ideas on these things, people don't engage. So I wonder, you know, what it could have looked like had the previous council gone under full constitution. I don't just making a decision.
I don't want a street tree advisory program.
No.
Three. Are you happy with that?
Recommends that council face to stroke. Yes, on that. Recommends that council strokes this district.
Okay,
With that,
So I'm with,
Policies say it's a work and you need something.
so I'm happy with 7 and 8 after my brothers.
Were there any other amendments to the policy?
for me, the council,
Yeah.
the discussion around spirit proposal. It's kind of lot of you, like tree replacement. Yeah, I'll difference.
Is it, I have 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Which we were all having.
We've given that much work.
They got
All to wait. Do you want to go on with it tonight?
like to move. Recommends that the council adopt proposed street tree policy. Now, Papa here, back here to ready. Attachment 1. Each and gives public notice to the making of policy. 5. Notice subject to adoption of proposed street tree policy. Papa here, the reading comes to force on 1st July 2026. 6. Notice that the street tree policy 2010 will be revoked from the time of proposed street tree policy. Papa here, the reading comes into force. 7. Recommends that council undertakes a district-wide canopy assessment, scope of the forest strategy. 8. Recommends that council scopes the establishment of the tree advisory group. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Thank you, Becky, for the seconder. Thank you, Macaroni. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Those against? The motion will carry. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about?
What's that? We're talking about the motion. Thank you.
but would there be a time frame where it's given an eight?
Thank you.
No.
Council could have that discussion of revolution around.
Because it's starting with us.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously a lot of work that needs to happen. So we can talk about that at the council meeting. Because we'll respond to that and the officers' comments around this resolution is.
We'll now move on to for the proposed alcohol control bylaw deliberations report. We will now move on to the report relating to the proposed. Hand over to senior policy Sophie to present the report.
Yeah, this report provides a summary of submitted complete on the proposed bylaw, as well as advice and additional information for deliberations. Most of it is supporting the proposed bylaw district, particularly during busy holiday periods when alcohol is likely in our cities. Police and emergency services strongly supported retaining the alcohol-free zones as a preventative measure. Other comments received included concerns about enjoyment of public spaces, suggestion that educational non-regulatory approaches should be prioritised and increased to extend alcohol-free zones to other times of locations. These are discussed in the report. Some submitters, especially permanent residents at coastal settlements, raise concerns about how the rules on possession and transport of alcohol might affect residents. Officers have proposed an amendment to the bylaw to make it clearer that lawful transport of unopened alcohol is permitted under the LGA. Government Act. The bylaw has also been updated to reflect the Ingoa Māori, the Māori names from Riversdale Beach, Kairongi and Castle Point, Rangi Whakauma, following advice from Rangi Incorporated. Subject to your approval, the proposed bylaw will be considered by council members.
Do you have any questions? There are questions. Then we'll now turn to the recommendations of the report. The recommendations are here with you. It is recommended that the Hearings Committee, one, notes the committee has been provided with the full set of submissions as part of the hearings report, 15th of April, 2026. Two, considers the community feedback received and advice from staff. Three, notes minor changes in proposed alcohol component. Turi Arohi Kahere Lapiro to address the transportation of alcohol and use of Te Reo originally named beach point community feedback. 4. Agrees that these minor changes do not require any amendment to the consideration and determination made by the Council on the 18th of February 2026. Being accounts 5. Recommends the Council adopt the proposed alcohol control law, Turi Arohi Whakahere Lapiro and gives public notice to make for the bylaw. 1. Determines that in accordance with section 155 part 2 part B of the LGA, the bylaw does not give rise to any implications under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. 2. Section 2. Determines that in accordance with section 1552A of the LGA, the proposed bylaw is the most appropriate form of bylaw. Determines that in accordance with section 155 of the Local Government Act 2022, the bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing the perceived problem. 6. Notes that subject to adoption, the alcohol control bylaw, Turi Arohi Whakahere Lapiro will come into force 1st of July 2026, and 7. Notes that the alcohol control bylaw next be due for review in 2035-36.
Yours is slightly different, just around, they're in different order. Yes. It's the same thing, but they're the same thing, but they're actually different. I would mention that it's big.
No, yes, you can put them there. Sorry, apologies for that, I know. Really, it's.
So don't think it's again.
No. Oh, it's just. I'll say
I would just like to note, and I'd like to recommend them that as the report that is in the
we apologize.
I'm to the second.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Those put in favour of discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, first I want to say excellent report. Very good report actually. Everything is brought up in which I'm not going to commend you on. Some people brought up about Mr. Tolo about targeting you. You know, there was seems to be specifically targeting people, and I love your reference here, and I can get how you arrived at that where it's said that we are targeting predictable peak period in harm in high risk locations. And I think it's really relevant to point out that we were targeting the activity and specificity of time, not the age group. And I just want to congratulate you on putting that information in the report because it's true. Now, we're not trying to stop kids having fun. We're actually just trying to protect this time and in these locations. Even, you know, all alcohol So I just wanted to point out, please.
Yeah, that was well done, particularly with walking through the townships with alcohol unopened. That makes some fun. I did a few things.
Sorry, and it also shows too that people don't get information. How do they? Because that was in there about the toing and froing with unopened. You know, one of the things I find frustrating here is they say you can't actually say, well, actually, no, you can do that and also act. It's a little bit frustrating because you've got to hear people who are really that building and is incorrect. Yeah.
I think it's appropriate that we do correct.
Yeah.
That to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I mean, again, I'll just repeat, obviously, thought it was a really good report. I think, in the team and the way the clarifications were clearly set out. Right. I now put the motion that has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please aye. Those against, the motion is carried. Oops. We're now at the conclusion of the meeting and we'll conclude with the character.
You?
Good.